Wow, you guys have really been sending in some fascinating stuff lately. A lot of it focusing on this kind of like this global push to regulate AI.
Yeah, it seems like it's really picking up speed too.
It is,
Yeah.
and that's exactly what we want to dig into today for this deep dive. Um, we want to kind of take all that information you sent and try to boil it down to the key takeaways, right? Give everyone listening a really clear and concise understanding of kind of what's going on in this very quickly evolving field.
Yeah.
Um, So we want to cover kind of two main things today. Why is this all happening right now?
Right.
And what are the kind of like major trends we're seeing in AI regulation all around the world?
Yeah. I mean, it's really incredible to see just how quickly AI capabilities are advancing almost every single day, it seems.
Yeah.
And it's really put lawmakers and regulators around the world in this position of trying to catch up,
It
right?
really does feel like a race.
Yeah.
It feels like everybody's kind of woken up and gone, "Oh,
Yeah.
we need to get ahead of this."
Ab-
Um, and it seems like the driving forces behind this are really kind of fundamental.
Mhm.
It's about protecting citizens, right?
Right, right.
Making sure that AI is developed and used responsibly,
Mhm.
and ultimately kind of like steering this incredible, powerful technology,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
in a direction that benefits humanity.
Right.
So let's jump right in. And I think a good place to start is what's going on over in the European Union, because they're kind of leading the charge in a lot of ways.
They really are.
Mhm.
I think the EU's Artificial Intelligence Act is a really big deal. It's one of the first and definitely one of the most comprehensive attempts to regulate AI kind of on a global level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And their approach has been kind of this two-pronged thing, right? Where they're saying, okay, for high-risk AI systems,
Mm-hmm.
we need to have really strict rules in place.
Mm-hmm.
But for things that are considered lower risk, we want to encourage innovation.
Yeah, we want to encourage innovation, but make sure things are
Right. Exactly.
safe.
It's a tough balance, right? Like
Absolutely.
how do you
Yeah,
how do you walk that line?
it's a tough one.
Um, and I think a big part of why this is all happening now is just how much AI is kind of bleeding into every aspect of our lives, right? I
Yeah.
mean, your sources highlight its use in so many different sectors now.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, we're talking about healthcare finance,
Mm-hmm.
entertainment education, even law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
It's everywhere.
It really is. I think that's one of the reasons why this is such a crucial conversation to be having now.
Yeah, I mean, and without some guardrails, you can really see how things could go wrong, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, the potential for misuse is definitely there. The potential for algorithms to kind of amplify,
Yeah.
existing biases that we have in society.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just a huge potential for unintended consequences.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a powerful technology,
Right.
and with great power comes great responsibility.
That's right.
I think, and I think that's something that the EU is really trying to get at with the AI Act. The core principles there are really about transparency, right?
Right.
So making sure that we understand how these systems work, accountability. So, who's responsible when things go wrong,
hmm
and then also implementing safety measures so that we can minimize the potential harms.
Right. So kind of some examples that your sources brought up, about high risk applications were things like facial recognition,
Mm-hmm.
self-driving cars,
Right.
right? Those are the things that they're saying, okay, these need much more scrutiny.
Yeah, much more scrutiny, more testing before we
Yeah.
let it out in the wild.
And it's interesting to think about this in the context of, other technologies that we've seen develop over time,
Yeah.
right? We've made mistakes in the past, we've learned from them,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems like with AI, the EU is trying to learn from those mistakes,
Yeah. Get ahead of it this time.
right? Be proactive rather than reactive.
Yeah.
So okay, so the EU has kind of set a pretty comprehensive standard here.
Mm-hmm.
Let's shift gears a bit and talk about what's happening in the US, because the picture there is a bit different.
It is a bit different. Unlike the EU, which has kind of a single unified legal structure, the US doesn't have a national AI law yet.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that nothing is happening.
Right. It's not like everyone's just sitting on their hands.
No, absolutely not. The conversation is definitely growing.
Yeah.
And I think, the Biden administration has really been pushing for this, having these discussions about regulation, particularly when it comes to privacy and safety,
Right.
which are huge concerns.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that your sources highlighted was these bipartisan bills that were recently introduced in Congress.
Oh, yeah, that was huge.
Right. And that really signals that there's a growing awareness,
Yeah.
across the political spectrum
Yeah.
that some sort of ground rules are needed here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's something that we need to address.
And it seems like the initial focus of those bills is really on protecting consumers,
Yeah.
So making sure that AI isn't being used to, like misuse people's data or engage in kind of like invasive surveillance.
All right, right. That's a huge concern, especially now that AI is integrated into so many things.
I mean, it's in our smartphones.
It's everywhere.
Right. It's everywhere.
It really is.
And speaking of concerns, this brings us to what one of your sources called a really interesting conversation.
Yeah.
Happening around accountability.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
This seems like a really central challenge in all of this.
It really is because, as AI systems become more advanced and they're able to make more and more decisions on their own,
Right.
the question of who's responsible when something goes wrong becomes even more complicated.
It really does. I mean, it's not always clear cut.
No.
Right. Like, your source used a couple of examples. Like, imagine a self-driving car gets into an accident.
Yeah.
Who's to blame?
Is it the AI? Is it the programmer? Is it the person who owns the car? Is it the
Right.
manufacturer? Like so many.
Right. It said tangled web.
It really is.
Or imagine, an AI is used in hiring
Yeah.
and it turns out that it's biased against certain groups of people.
Right. Right. And these are all things that are happening now.
Yeah.
This isn't just hypothetical.
Just
This is
that.
real life stuff.
So how do you determine responsibility? Right?
Yeah. Who do you hold accountable?
Who's accountable? Is it the company that built the AI? Is it the people who are using it? Is it the people who designed it? I mean, it's a mess.
It's messy. It's a very messy situation.
And it seems like figuring this out right
Yeah.
is a big driver of this whole push for regulation.
It is. It's about creating a framework that encourages ethical AI development.
Right.
From the start.
So let's zoom out a little bit now and look beyond Europe and the U.S. because your sources also talk about how other big players on the global stage are kind of coming up with their own AI guidelines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is becoming a global issue. It's not just limited to, the Western world. Countries like China and India are also developing their own approaches to AI regulation.
Right, and they're bringing their own, political and cultural contexts to the table.
Absolutely, which makes it even more interesting and complex.
Yeah, I mean, China, for example, seems to be really focused on data security and the use of AI for surveillance.
Right, which is,
Which reflects,
it's a very different approach.
Yeah, their own priorities, right?
Right.
And China's a huge player in AI development globally.
Right.
So what they do is definitely going to have, ripple effects.
Yeah, they're a major player in the AI market.
It's going to shape the market.
Absolutely. Their
Right.
policies and regulations are going to have a big influence.
So, okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've looked at the big players.
Yeah.
We've talked about the key areas of focus,
Yeah.
Some of the challenges. But let's bring this back to you, the listener,
Yeah.
right? Like, why should you care about all this talk about AI legislation?
That's a great question because, sometimes this stuff can feel very abstract.
Yeah, it can feel very removed.
Yeah. It's like, oh, it's government stuff.
Right,
But it's not just that.
right,
It's really about making sure that AI is used to benefit society.
right,
It's about fairness. It's about safety. It's about protecting your privacy
right.
in a world where AI is becoming more and more prevalent.
And, your sources also touch on the potential benefits that good regulation can kind of unlock, right?
Absolutely.
We're talking about, better healthcare, smarter cities, more engaging entertainment.
Safer workplaces.
Yeah.
All kinds of things.
Safer workplaces. Yeah.
And it's not just some futuristic thing.
Right.
This is happening now.
This is happening now.
AI is already integrated into our lives.
And the expectation is that we're going to see a lot more countries kind of jumping on this bandwagon,
Yeah, absolutely.
introducing similar laws in the coming years.
It's not going away.
It's not going away.
This is the new reality.
So it feels like we're moving towards a future where, there's a clearer set of rules
Yeah.
for how humans and AI are going to coexist.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
what would you say is kind of like the one key takeaway for everyone listening?
I think the biggest takeaway is that AI legislation is here to stay.
Right.
It's not a fad. It's not a trend. It's a fundamental shift.
Yeah.
And it's something that's going to continue to evolve.
It's not going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere. It's going to shape the future of AI.
And on that note, here's something for you to think about. As we all move into this future where AI is increasingly a part of our lives,
Yeah.
what do you think is the most important balance to strike between encouraging innovation in AI, right? Like, we don't want to stifle progress,
Right.
but also putting in the necessary guardrails.
All right. How do we find that balance?
How do we do it responsibly?
Yeah.
And how do you think all these changes that are happening globally are going to shape your own personal interactions with technology in the years to come?
Yeah.
You know, especially with all these ethical considerations that come with AI becoming so widespread.
Yeah. It's definitely something to think about.
Is food for thought.
For sure.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of AI regulation.
It's been a pleasure.
And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.